Have you ever been in love in your life?
No. No, like romantically, no.
Yeah, never.
No.
Do you think that's part of the problem?
What's the problem?
Why you are the way you are?
Oh, and what's the way I am? What are you trying to say?
I've given people 2 hours of the way you are. You're unashamed about a lot of it.
I don't think I have a problem. I think I'm cheerful, boisterous. Look, unlike you, I'm willing to be a little well, I guess you're willing to be provocative, but I'm willing to be very provocative.
I have often said that Piers is the commentator that I hate to love and I love to hate, because generally I will either agree with him completely or completely disagree with him. And oftentimes I'm baffled by the things that he says. Well, in this debate, you had two people that I would say that about, because I feel much the same about Nick Fuentes. Sometimes I think he's right on target, and other times I don't know what planet he's on. But that moment right there, that final moment where Piers thinks that he wrapped it all up and tied it with a bow, that right there was the moment he lost the debate, because he revealed something about himself that I don't think he's going to be able to recover from. So let's get into this. You see, in that moment, Piers thinks that he is proving to everybody that the problem with Nick is that he's just incapable of love, and so he doesn't have feelings, and he thinks that everybody is going to take his side in this. The problem is, all Piers did there is reveal that he is completely out of touch with anybody other than the boomer generation that he has spent his career catering to. And the reason is, people younger than the boomer generation are well aware that Piers is a raging narcissist. And we all know Piers pretends to have feelings for people. He pretends to be in love, but the only person that Piers loves is himself. And so in that moment, he reveals the fact that he doesn't understand that the rest of the world knows this about him. Yeah, I'm sure he fools the boomers, but he doesn't fool the younger generations. And at least Nick, he may go around acting the way he does, but he doesn't pretend and he doesn't fake it. And you can't say the same thing for Piers. So he revealed a lot more about himself in that moment than he did about Nick Fuentes. But what I'm going to do here, I'm going to try and go through. I haven't seen anybody else's take on this, but I'm going to try and go through and pick the things that I think other people are less likely to pick out, and find the clips that I think show a very different side of both of these gentlemen.
An aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
but you're the
Chinese,
product of an interracial marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not
Let's say
really.
for the sake of argument,
really.
sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
for the sake of argument,
the very person you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic, of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans and Europeans.
Though, is it? It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
not
a
really. You just keep saying you only want to live in a white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally got Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here, though. But I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing:
Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many are black?
The honesty.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said.
Now, I did not watch the stream live as I was working, so I can only imagine what it is that Ye said to Nick, but regardless, if Piers had to censor it, I assume I sure as heck shouldn't be playing it because I'll get slammed. But it's very interesting here that Nick allowed Piers to continue to say that he's from a mixed marriage or whatever. European is European. Is there a different race? Are there multiple races in European countries? Or did Piers not know what Nick's background actually is, and yet he's out here making this point? I think Nick just kind of let it go because he was having more fun with it than more fun watching Piers' reaction than and letting Piers reveal himself through his reaction than Nick needed to say. I mean, he made a perfect joke. I've been trying to get out of here. What are you talking about? But the thing is that Piers kept trying the same old tropes. Well, how many of your friends are black? Well, how many of your friends are Jewish? That's ridiculous, because that's not how younger generations look at it. And this is the Gen Z edgelord that he's talking to, and he thinks he's winning, and he's losing because he's just reinforcing everything that Nick says on his show. There were points in this where I actually felt bad for Piers, because he really doesn't even realize how badly he did in this, because he just sees it as he kept saying the same old narratives and getting the same responses. And he thought that was a victory, when in actuality, it was more Nick revealing Piers for who he was.
If I wanted to be a grifter, I'd be like you. And I would go and say,
how much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that. You guys
I'm not done hearing about that.
Okay, well, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready to take our country back.
I've got three
we're
sons.
not listening
I've
to
got
crying
three
minorities
sons
anymore.
I've got 3 sons, and they don't share your views.
One of the things that I enjoy watching in this is Piers' reaction. I mean, the disdain on his face, it reminds me, for those of you that know me from the ORMV days, it reminds me of Samantha Markle. The way there's just disdain when someone else is talking, I find it very rude. But the thing that he's missing in this is the most important thing that Nick said was at the end, when he said, we're taking our country back. And considering the state of things in the UK, where at another time in this interview, they discuss it, how horrible it is that people are being frog marched off to jail in the UK for tweets on social media. Well, Piers, if your sons aren't thinking like Nick, that's a problem. And I'm not talking about his feelings about, the broader social issues, but what about the idea that it's time to take your country back? That's what Piers should want his sons to be thinking. And he's not getting that people who are not of the older generations, that's their point of view right now. And that's why Piers isn't getting that there is a shift. It's your time is over. The boomers, they had their entire lives, they were the biggest generation, and so they had their way because there were so many of them. Well, that time is ending. And now, as things change, they're not the biggest generation anymore, because the other generations, when they get together, they overpower the boomers now. And the boomers aren't going quietly into that dark night. Now, I want to jump to the end of the interview real quick, and then I have one more clip that I want to show, because that's the one that I think is the most important clip of the debate. But in case you don't know ahead of time what happened, what was going on behind the scenes, ever since Tucker did his interview with Nick Fuentes, Piers has been teasing in multiple interviews with completely other people, saying, I've been thinking about whether or not I should invite Nick on. Yeah, I'm wondering whether or not I should have Nick on the show. And he's been making this big dramatic ploy about it, about how torn he was over whether or not he wanted to actually sit down and interview Nick. And so at the end of the interview, I think, again, Piers reveals a lot more about himself than he does about Nick while trying to reveal Nick.
Tone policed. I don't like to be told about, people are going to tone police and play moral cop about you can't make this joke or you can't make this statement. And I think that's just about being intellectually open. I'm a believer in openness.
I completely agree. I think you should be perfectly free to express yourself exactly how you see fit. My problem is how you see fit with some of the things that you say. And we've been through a lot of them. And I think people who don't know you very well will have been shocked in parts and surprised in other parts. But in totality, they can see you for what you are. I think we've got a lot nearer to what the real Nick Fuentes is in the last 2 hours than we probably have seen from your other recent interviews. Would you agree?
No, I mean, the clip thing, we've done the clip thing. We've all seen the clip show. Everyone's seen the clips. You think you're the first one to do the ADL rap sheet. So here you said this, and then here you said that. I've been playing that game for 10 years. So this is honestly more of the same, to tell you the truth.
Nick Fuentes, I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Now, I think in that moment, it's safe to say Piers would rather sit down with Meghan Markle and have tea with her than ever have a conversation with Nick Fuentes again. And part of the reason is he didn't do well in this debate. He thinks he won, but he deep down knows that he didn't. Now, it's interesting because Tucker and Piers really had the same intention with their interviews with Nick. They both really wanted to, quote unquote, reveal Nick. The difference was Tucker did it with the intention of appealing to Nick's viewers. He was trying to be the nice guy. Piers had no illusions of that. He had no intention, no illusions. And the thing is that in trying to reveal Nick, both of them just ended up revealing more of themselves. Tucker, I think, did fairly well in the outcome. He did. I mean, he presented himself as being more sincere than I would say I would have otherwise given him credit for, and I appreciated that. Piers, on the other hand, well, like I said, he got flustered repeatedly throughout the interview. He knew deep down that he wasn't coming off the way he wanted to. Nick was able to give back as good as he got. He wasn't, sitting there saying, yeah, sure, don't call me that, don't call me that. No, he was saying, fine, I'll take your labels, but this is what is important. And that's what Piers really, at the end of the day, couldn't compete with. Now, this is a clip that was from earlier, obviously from the end that I just played, but this clip, I think, is what sums up the entirety of the debate.
When I started my show, it started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives. And I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't made up my mind on that because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there has never been, there's never been a debate on it. And there's never been a debate because of the stigma, because of the censorship. And I think that leads a lot of people to say, well, what do they have to hide?
Now, this to me is the most telling clip of all. Because for one thing, Piers refuses to acknowledge that what Nick is saying is true. Nick is right. He's basically saying that the truth doesn't mind being questioned. Lies don't like being challenged. And the problem is, Piers agrees with him, but he refuses to agree with Nick because he assumes that Nick is everything that he believed the press. He doesn't want to admit that there is something to what Nick is saying, even though if you had asked Piers on a totally different interview, he would have agreed 100% with the philosophy that if it's the truth, it can be questioned. Now, he grudgingly agrees with Nick, but he doesn't truly say, well, you know what? You're absolutely right, which is what he should be saying, which would be the genuine response. Now, of course, when you judge someone before you know them based on just what you think about them or what you've heard about them or what your preconceived notions are, that would be prejudice. And that is the exact thing that he is critiquing and criticizing Nick for, where in actuality, the hypocrisy is ridiculous because he himself is prejudging Nick in this entire thing. Piers didn't go into this with an open mind saying, oh, let's just hear what your thoughts are. And even when he agreed with him, he refused to acknowledge that he agreed with him because Piers bought the narrative and because Piers has his own preconceived biases and notions and prejudices. And he's no better than Nick. It's just that he has the bias against the person it's okay to be biased against. You know? And that is pretty much everything that Nick is fighting against. The automatic prejudgment against white young males. And that's why I say that Piers lost this debate. Because the one thing that you have to realize is that anybody below the boomer level, and not to say that boomers don't get it too, but anyone younger than a boomer, they see hypocrisy and they're tuned into it. And because they're tuned into it and because they can suss it out in any situation, they can see clearly the hypocrisy in all of Piers' arguments. The very fact that he went into this with a prejudice against Nick, when he's then going to sit here and try and berate Nick for prejudice, is the hypocrisy that was this entire debate. And that's why Piers is the one that lost. And it's not even that Nick won. I mean, he did. But even without Nick winning, Piers lost because he's still pandering to an audience that's dwindling. I mean, that's not where the future is. The future can suss out the hypocrisy. And that's why Piers lost himself the debate. But this is just my opinion. Obviously, I expect that everybody else out there might have a totally different one, and I want to hear what yours is. So please, do let me know down in the comments. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great day.